confusion. So thank you. Betraying the original title, I am also like mostly going to present the exteroceptive part of our analysis, and it's a very, because we found some bug in the analysis in the interoceptive part. We are just now modifying it, and it's very early stage, this present work. So I'd like to have your feedback to develop further. So several alteration of the sensory motor function is known for in depression. There is reduced sensitivity of sensory perception, and there is also motor retardation leading to reduced speed and delayed motor initiation, slow speaking rate, and loss of facial expression. But please note there is a lot of heterogeneity in these things. So like in different subset of depression patients. So there are a few studies investigating the neural underpinning of these changes in the sensory motor function in depression. But our understanding of the cognitive process in the brain is undergoing a rapid change. So in contrast to the conventional bottom-up conventional approach to brain, which emphasizes brain as a passive organ, there is this related theoretical framework, separative coding or active inference, which emphasizes brain as actively generating prediction about the external world. And according to these frameworks, the core mechanism, organizing mechanism of brain is to minimize the prediction error. And it is subsumed in two different ways in sensory and motor domain. In sensory domain, the minimization of prediction error is subsumed by updating the prediction about the external world. So here, according to this theory, so the top-down connections carry information about the prediction. It inhibits or explains away the incoming stimuli in the lower cortical areas. And then these bottom-up connections carry this prediction error to update the prediction of the higher cortical regions in the sensory domain. On the other hand, in the motor domain, the minimization of prediction is carried not by updating the predictions, but by, in a way, fulfilling the predictions. So it is by actually acting on the external world, so that and changing the external world so that the incoming stimuli cohere with the prediction. So the predictive coding theory in motor domain is not very precisely defined. So I take this liberty to describe what I think should be the nature of the connections in the motor domain. So here, the top-down connections mostly carry the predictions about the external world, but this should be facilitatory, because ultimately it leads to the unlike in the sensory domain, because it ultimately leads to the activation of the lower motor neuron. On the other hand, the bottom-up connections mostly carry the incoming information of the sensory world, just like the sensory domain. So based on this, so our present work, we implemented the effective connectivity analysis employing spectral dynamic causal modeling on resting state fMRI data from depression patients and age and sex match healthy control from an open data set. We extracted time series from the important relevant regions involved in the sensory motor functions in the brain. And our output is the mean effective connectivity in the different brain regions, hierarchically organized brain regions. The mean effective connectivity across depression patients and healthy control, and also the group difference in effective connectivity in healthy control and MDD patients. And here is the, so here is the nodes based on the hierarchy. So the nodes we selected for that, at the topmost level, there are frontopolar regions, which is situated the highest order in the hierarchy. Then there is DLPFC and VLPFC. And then there are lower cortical region involved in sensory and motor processing, like primary visual areas, primary auditory areas, somatosensory cortex, in the sensory domain, and supplementary motor area and motor cortex in the motor domain. So this is the results of the mean effective connectivity in MDD patients and healthy control. And here the red connections denotes the effective connectivity, which is facilitatory, and blue denotes the inhibitory effective modulation in the left and right side. It's congested. But I think it is apparent that the net top-down in the sensory domain, the net top-down connections are inhibitory, like from FP1 to primary visual cortex, or FP1 to somatosensory cortex or auditory cortex. On the other hand, the net bottom-up connections are mostly facilitatory, which is compatible with our conceptualization. And also in the motor domain, the opposite, like the top-down connections are mostly excitatory. So this is about the mean, and bottom-up connections are inhibitory. So this is about the mean effective connectivity across the MDD and healthy control. Now coming to the effect of depression on effective connectivity of resting state data. So this is the connections which survives at the group level. So this is significantly different in MDD patients and healthy control. The red connections denotes the connections which are increased, and the blue connections which are reduced in MDD patients compared to the healthy control. So we are still to come with a coherent explanation about all this observation, but there are some observed connections which are goes well with the symptomatology in depression patients. So for example, there are increase in connectivity strength in the sensory domain from FP1 from the higher to lower regions, like FP1 to primary visual cortex and FP1 to primary auditory cortex. So there, in other words, there's a disinhibition of these top-down connections. So which may explain the reduced sensitivity of different sensory perception in depression. Because so if you see in the mean effective connectivity, there is these connections were inhibitory, and here it is positive, means it disinhibits this prediction. In the motor domain, on the other hand, important findings are like bilateral self-inhibitory loop in the supplementary motor area, so which may in a way explain in depression patients, explain the motor retardation in depression. But to be frank, we are still to explain all these connections and their neurophysiological significance. And of course, this study has many limitations at this present stage, because we have not considered for example, the effect of medication. So we are going to incorporate the effect of medication in analysis in the PEB, in the regression analysis. And also we are planning to implement this analysis on another pool of subjects who are like medicine naive. And also, as we all know, all these depressions is a heterogeneous condition. So so we are also going to consider different dimension of depression and how this affect this effective connectivity in the different hierarchical region in the sensory motor, like both interoceptive and exteroceptive cortex. So yeah, this is all about our presentation. So I'd like to have your opinion and criticism so that we can develop our work further.
That's amazing. Thank you. Again, I've been looking at the Q&A. People, put your questions in there. Oh, here's a question in the chat from Ingun. I'm taking an intro class to neuropsychology, so I don't understand a lot of what you're saying. Could you sum up your findings shortly in simple terms?
Okay, so yes, of course. I mean, this is my first time to present something in 5 minutes, so I'm sure that I'm confused. So if you ask me to sum up, so we investigated how the top-down and bottom-up connections in the different brain regions involved in the sensory motor functions in the brain changes in depression patient. And we found that overall there are decrease in the top-down inhibitory influence of the higher order cortical regions to lower order sensory regions. And also there are more self-inhibitions of the supplementary motor area. So this may be one, be underlying. This connectivity, we are trying to connect it with the depression symptomatology of reduced sensory sensitivity and motor retardations in depression patients. So this may be a potential neural underpinning of these symptoms.
All right. Ingun says, thank you.